good morning, everyone. Shall we get started? Please welcome our new speaker.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining this session. I know we had an excited keynote session with a lot of learning today, and hope we continued the same. A quick introduction. I'm Ankit Sharma. I'm a senior cloud solution architect with Infosys Data and Analytics practice. I'm a data and AI practitioner. I specialize in creating data and AI products for organization, enable them to become a data-driven organization on multiple cloud and the data platforms. Right? Today, I'd like to share with you the key learning, the challenges, the problems, and how we enable Databricks to fuel and come up with those data and AI products. Right. So today, we'll walk through a quick what and why about data mesh, how we talk about the multi-cloud platform. We'll talk about how we enable it, and in the later down, we'll touch upon the different benefits and how the Infosys Topaz enables you to create and come up with such enablers. So talking about a data mesh, a quick refresher. Most of us have been listening about this architecture pattern in place for quite a few years now. A one-liner moving towards a decentralized architecture. But it leaves many questions. Why? Why we need it? We were happy with the erstwhile warehouse system. We had decentralized architecture. We were having those reports. We were coming it out. But imagine, I come up from the CPG organization, taking up most of those examples. So we have those data engineers. We have relied them historically to go and process the data, acquire the data, ingest the data, and then make it available for our business, for our reporting people. There is an engineer who is working on the point of sales data set. That data is primarily how we sell from the store to an end consumer. Right? They are good at it. Every retailer, we have 400 retailers. They are sending different kind of data set, different kind of formats with multiple attributes. Let's talk about the same engineer is tasked to process another data set, which is coming from shipments. Now, this data set is primarily for distributor to that same retail store. Now, it also revolves around the similar attribute. We will also have the same product, which are there in the POS. The same product is being shipped, but it has many other different attributes. Right? And it will be a challenge for a data engineer always to go and have that understanding of the domain, map those fields with the processing. And that's how the central architecture, the setup that we have, creates a bottleneck. We don't have those understandings coming up. And that's what the data mesh help us to come up and overcome these challenges. Right? Now, we are coming up with the data as a product approach, where we have those domain-centric, domain-focused setup. We will have a person from a domain who understands those data sets, who can enable their own data, who can acquire, and they will be able to do a good handshake between a data producer and a data consumer. Right? And that's the whole part with data mesh enable us for. The whole goal here is to have a data as a product. Take an example of the point of sale. Right? We can do so much with that data set. Itself, a point of sale is you combine it with your shopper data set. You combine with your customer data set. It is an AI product. If you think about it, we are able to create the customer shopping behavior experience. If you put that up and you give it to your analyst team, they will be able to make wonder out of it. They will be able to get those marketing campaigns targeted for users. And that's how these AI and data products are helpful, and that's how we have seen industries going towards this setup. Well, let's talk about a bit more about the data mesh. We know it's a technical enablement. We are creating a platform out of it. But it doesn't stop there. We have to look at it as a cultural shift. This is something that has to come from the enterprise. It has to feed in at every level to enable that cultural shift into the organization, to have them a domain focus. Erstwhile, look at the operations, right? How we go, and if there is a job failure, the operations will understand there is a failure in my pipeline, we couldn't load the data. It's a simple. No, there's no impact, no understanding of the data coming in. But when we go on to the domain data, and that is our the first class, right? The person who's a data owner, they will come up and they will say, OK, I see there's a failure. I see we did not have the recent data coming from one of the retailer. The impact is you cannot have your demand forecast coming up, right? That's a big impact. That's how the business will understand, and they will be able to take those appropriate actions, because now they know with the demand forecast not coming up, we are looking at a certain challenge. I maybe have more inventory at the end of the day, right? We don't want that those inventory to pile up at the end of the day, right? At the same time, if we have those domain coming up, say, similarly from the marketing side of it, if we are not having the correct social media data, I may be sending a campaign to a user who is not liking my same product, right? Or they have a ticket in place, they have a concern in place. So that's where this mind shift come from. The another part is we are working with a large set of organizations who consume our data set. There could be a big, giant retailers. They have their all infrastructure in place. They can consume our data in a various format. They can take those, the data set, which we are putting up in form of, say, the delta share. There could be a smaller retailer, on the other hand, which doesn't have the infrastructure. They are still relying upon those APIs or the file-based setup or very low integration method. And that's where it is important to go towards those different consumption models. Right? So with this, I'll say this is the overall ecosystem that we are trying to build up, and how we go and towards how we take a goal, how we understand the objective of the organization. That's where we come in play. We go and we learn from the organizations. We understand when they say, do you want data as a product? That's your vision. But what is the ultimate goal that we are trying to lean towards that will lead you towards the data mesh orientation, right? So here you will see the fundamental objectives, right? We go and we talk about the integrated data platform. Now, you will say we are going towards the decentralized, but we still want them to be integrated. The reason is simple. I'm going back with the same example. We have that point of sale data coming in, which have the lot of information about the customer shopping, what products we are selling at the store on a different location. Now we have the another side, that shipment data coming in. And if you do not have that integration in there, we will not be able to combine them together, and we will not be able to generate the demand forecast for our users, right? And this helps you to optimize your supply chain at the end. So that's where we are enabling those domains. We are giving them all the power to go and create your data set, but at the same time, we also want to have the cross-domain data coming together, and that's where we call it as an integrated data platform. That must be one of the objectives. If you want to go into the silo, you can still good with the Delta Lake setup, the existing setup. But if you want the setup where you are empowering both sides of the user, the domain, say example, a brand manager, he's focused on the brand. But at the same time, one who is at enterprise manager, who is working across those brands, who is having multiple set of the business overview, he want to look at that integrated view. Right? So this is one of the key part. Another thing we have seen with the organization coming is, it's good, we are going with the decentralized, but the organizations today want to have the privacy and the security first architecture, right? And that's the key part here. Again, this has to be one of the objectives that we should be able to solve, and we did that with Databricks a lot, right? So we were able to have the secure data sharing. We know this space is evolving. We learned quite a few upcoming in the keynotes about the data sharing as well, how it will ensure that we are secure and we can share the data set across, right? Going further, I want to touch upon how do we go ahead and approach. Now we know data mesh, we know what are the benefits it can come up with, but how do you approach the solution? We just going there in the green field will not be a good setup, right? We need to understand what are your domains that we want to bring up. How do you have the governance in place, first of all? And how do you control the data which you are sharing across is secure? How do you control what kind of data that you need to share across, right? So that's where we'll give you a quick logical view of the implementation. Now, if you look at it, the central part, that is where the governance will be rolled out. right? And that is the key component where the central team will come in play. Now, we are giving a lot of power to the domain need. If you look at those hexagons, there is domain nodes that are coming up. These are the nodes, say, I'll take another example. We have the point of sale people already there. Now we all started getting the loyalty data from our retailers. Now we know we have a loyalty in terms of Walmart Plus, we have the Kroger Boost. They are sending and generating a lot of data. How do I make use of it? I do not want to hold up my team. We'll have those infrastructure put up as form of the infrastructure as a code. We enable them, we give them the domain node, and we'll allow them to acquire their data, to process their data, and to get the insight out of their data set, right? And that's where the power of the data mesh coming up plays. The second part is the sharing, right? So there are two modes of sharing, and the way you enable the sharing, the way we enable the communication between the hub, the peer, and the external party gives us the flavor of data mesh. Now, here I'm saying we are trying to get closer to data mesh. There are multiple variations that come up. We are enabling a peer-to-peer data sharing. The example that we talked about was the point of sales and supply chain, right? How we enable the data sharing from a domain to the external party. It will go through the central hub, because that's where I'm governing my security, right? So that's where the example comes up where we have the data being monetized by the different organizations. So we'll focus upon these part. And definitely the next one is, if you look at it, it all revolves around the metadata. What metadata it is? It is the metadata about your infrastructure, how you are consuming, how the different domain nodes. We are giving the power to the domain, but still we have to keep the right checks and balances in place, so we are not letting our lose control. We want a chaos, but in a controlled way, right? That's the way we go with the data mesh. The second part of the metadata that comes up is the audit data mesh. Again, we want to have that audit in control with us. We want that central team to be able to validate and take educated decision about the security from the audit perspective. We are talking about the world where we have a lot of PII data coming in. We talk about the loyalty. There's a customer information coming in. There's a customer demographic coming in. We have the profile generated. So we have to be very careful about the information that we are generating and the information that we are sharing. And this data share could be within the organization or outside. Now let's look at it. We talked about the approach, how we are taking up. We know these are the 4 principles for the data mesh, and believe everyone in the room came across to them one time or the another. But this part, we'll talk about how Databricks, the lakehouse setup, the capabilities, how it is providing the building blocks to go and make it a compatible architecture, a compatible solution with a data mesh pattern that we are talking about. The first one, if you talk about here, the Databricks is primarily giving us the collaboration. We know there's a focus on the domain, but there has to be a collaboration that comes up. How that collaboration comes up, it has the capability to have those workspaces. We have the workspace created. We have our users to collaborate and generate something meaningful which can be shared across, and then it will become a more domain-oriented setup. Again, the sharing is the key over here. Right. The second point is the data as a product. Now, we have been talking a lot about the data as a product, but we have to also ensure that it's a quality data, right? We are able to show the trust in the data set. Anyone who is subscribing to our data set should have that data assertion coming up. This is the high quality data. This is the most recent data. And we'll talk about the concept that we brought up with the smart data quality, smart DQ. It allows us to ensure you give the assertion of your data on different DAMA KPIs. We talk about the accuracy of the data. We talk about the consistency of the data. We talk about the freshness of the data in there. And then, for the last but not the least, the data has to be available to the users, and they should be able to consume it effectively. And talking about the Delta Lakehouse, definitely. The sharing can be enabled and eased out with the Delta sharing. The next part is the self-service infrastructure. And this is where we primarily used the Terraform scripts. We know the infrastructure as a code is powerful. We do not want our teams to go and wait upon for the infrastructure to be available. In the virtual system, it has to go into multiple hops and loops. You have to have a cost center in place. You go and spin up your nodes. You attach it to the cost center. We don't want that kind of the delay, that kind of a bureaucracy coming in. And that's where infrastructure as a code is helpful. From the Databricks standpoint, we are getting a great orchestration in terms of the workflows. We know that it's being extended and it is used drastically across the different organizations. And over here, the key and the most important one is the governance, right? Unity Catalog, we have seen it is getting more powerful with every year, every month, every day. We are getting those multiple features coming up with the Unity Catalog. But that's not alone, right? We have to ensure these data products are interoperable, right? We are able to get that, the governance, we have to be able to get that the quality in place. That's how the Databricks as a summary is complementing this whole data mesh as a pattern. The next one will go into the detail about each of the setup, how we enable the governance. So I'll take an example again for one of the organization we went through, right? The adoption of the data is always a challenge, right? We enable those data set, but we are not able to enable that adoption if we do not approach it in a right way. And that's where the governance come in play, right? So definitely there are tools in the market which help you enable. They can embed your the governance cataloging within the reporting tools, say Power BI, say the world of Tableau. Once you have that, you understand the metadata of the data set. You understand how the enhance the user experience as an overall, right? And that's the key part over here. If you look at it, the Unity Catalog, it is able to get it across all the workspace. It will be able to collate all that metadata. From the user standpoint, we have those different personas, right? I'll take an example of the operations persona, right? The operations team, they are also one of the big consumer of the cataloging tool. Whenever they encounter any issues in their day-to-day operations work, they have to go and try and find out a root cause, fix it, and that's where those engineering and the operations come in play, right? And that's where the Unity Catalog has a feature of the lineage, which we have seen much more valuable coming up for those operations to go deep dive, understand the whole flow, understand where there are the failure, fix it, and get back onto their regular work pathway, right? And this is one of the part that we have seen has been effectively used on the governance side of it. The next part we are talking about is the data sharing. So again, we have the product. We have to commoditize that product, right? How you do that? You cannot keep it in a silo. Now, there are two ways we talk about. If you remember, we were talking about the domain nodes in the beginning. So anyone which is working around the domain nodes. Take an example. We quoted about a brand manager. They are looking for the recent data. For them, it is a data product, right? Once they go and they put it out, the data, say we were talking about the customer behavior, right? So that is a data as a product or AI as a product because they are able to get a lot of information about it. What we have enabled and what we have seen across the organization, there are multiple enablers for the data, right? You need to have it within the organization. That is what you are doing with the Databricks to Databricks. You want to go and share your data with a third party. They could be your suppliers. They could be your retailers. They could be another party that you're working with where you want to exchange the data. Say, for example, the manufacturers, right? And that's where you can enable it through the Delta sharing. You can enable it through the REST API. And the last one is for the consumption part, where we are focusing primarily on the Power BI. So the Delta sharing has helped us streamline the whole data delivery experience out here, right? And it allows us to build the data mesh and create a secure sharing ecosystem for the data set. Now, the next one is about the orchestration. And this is one of the key factor that comes in. We are working a lot on the data platforms. We understand within the data platform, the organization starts up with their cloud native, right? That's the first their go-to options when it comes to the orchestration. You have to acquire the data. You have to ingest the data. You are doing the pre-processing, right? And after pre-processing, the data is getting landed onto the Databricks. And sometimes the organization go ahead and even orchestrate the data within the Databricks also using the native tools. Now, this does not allow the interoperability of the data. This makes us a non-portable cloud architecture, right? To move away from that non-portable architecture, we started and we evaluated, we worked with Databricks workflow. And we understand that Databricks workflow has given us a lot of fuel, a lot of power to orchestrate the data. It has those parameter-driven features which enable us to go and have the single template used for our multiple processing, right? Again, here the reusability factor come in play. If we talk about, this is another part which the central governance team has to do, the central hub has to do. They have to ensure that these templates are in place which can be reused by this domain team. We do not want them to go and reinvent everything because it is done by another domain, right? And that's where those the sharing come in play, right? The next part is also, if you notice, we have the Airflow out here. We know there's an enterprise. In the enterprise, everything is not bound onto a single data platform. And that's where the Airflow provides us that agility to go and do a pre-processing of the data, for example, before we land it on to the Databricks. So these 2 and 3, they combined one, they provide us the lot of benefits around, they provide us the lot of fuel around how we are bringing the whole data mesh realization. The next part of it, let's talk about what are the benefits that we are looking at when we say the data mesh, right? Definitely, the first one, we saw that example, right? A data engineer who is working on a priority A for a data set 1 has to have the bandwidth available to work on the data set 2, acquire it, ingest it, and process it, right? And that's where we have seen with enable of the data mesh pattern, we have given that power to the domain themselves to go and bring on their own data. Now, we have seen a kind of the acceleration from 16 weeks to 2 weeks to bring on this data. They need not to wait. They need not to wait for the infra. They need not to wait for your bandwidth or your dedicated engineer to be available. This is a team which will comprise, and that's where in the beginning we were talking about, it is a mindset. It's a cultural shift which has to come from the enterprise if you want to adopt it, because you have to have a mix of a team which has those product owner. They have the whole block or the building block of the data mesh is the clearly focused domain. And that's where we say it is helping us to get reduce that onboarding time drastically. Right? And then the trust rules, definitely. We need to go with the data quality. We need to understand that we have that quality data in place, so we are not talking about the trust issues. And how we enable it, in the 2 slides ago, again, I'll go back and I'll share this one with one more level of detail. If you see, during the setup that we were working for one of the clients, we have that immuta on top. What it gives us is gives us the power to have that fine-grained access control and the access policy. And it comes up with a lot of those access policy which can be portable. You define it for the one data product, you have that policy applicable, you can move it on to the another data products. And it worked seamlessly with the Unity Catalog. We were able to get these two working. Now, we know the fine-grained access with the recent release, it is available within the Unity Catalog as well, so we will be able to take that power coming in. We have those row-level access, we have the column-level access available in the Unity Catalog, so that way we'll be able to enable it. What we have to validate is how the access policies can be defined and how those access policies can be reused and across all different data and the AI products, right? So that's where the immuta, in this case, helped us to enable that trust. We need to ensure the data that we were creating, right? The next part is definitely the multi-cloud platform. Now, with those data mesh coming up, with platform coming up, we were giving a lot of stress, a lot of focus on the multi-cloud platform. We do not have that dependency. And we have seen that with the workflows, right? We have used those Databricks workflows. We use the Apache Airflow to reduce that dependency on the native components. And if you look at it, the key one, and this is also a fuel for many organizations. We are sitting on a lot of data. By bringing the data and creating a new platform, we are doing a lot of investment. That's what we have observed with most of our clients, with most of our engagements that we have. But if we have a way to monetize the data, If we have a way to monetize that platform, that way we are getting that return on investment, right? And that's how the data and the AI product are so much helpful, because you can go ahead and you can share those data set with your consumers. So for example, we know the Nielsen of the world, we know the Walmart Luminate of the world. They are the one who collect a lot of data from the different systems. They work with their multiple stores. What they have done it, they take the data, they put it into the centralized marketplace, and then everyone who go and subscribe to the data is a kind of giving a share, giving the monetization to them, because they want to consume the data. And that data has a lot of information, right? So we are talking about the two parts here. The data that we consumed, we took our data set, we monetized our data set, and we are sharing it across for the further consumption, further insight, further analysis. So it's a circle that goes up on how do we derive the value from the data set out here. With this, I'll take a few minutes to go and explore how in Infosys we are going with the AI-first approach, and how we are enabling from the data-led organization to the AI-first organization. Right? We have seen in last a decade or so, there's a lot of focus on the digital transformation. We have taken up many of our customers on this journey, and they have been successfully there. They are on the different horizons where they were able to have the make sense of their data. They were able to generate those prediction of their data. They were able to monetize their data. So these are the different horizons that we have seen for a customer being there in the digital journey. But now when we go to the AI-led setup, where we are talking about a lot of autonomous. So in the beginning, if we go back, we were talking about a data engineer who has to do a lot of mapping, and there is a bandwidth was a concern always, right? With the kind of autonomous that we are bringing in the whole data engineering world right now, we have the auto data mapper. They will be able to understand the data set which are there. They will look at the history pattern of the data set. They will be able to do that source to target mapping for you, right? And that's the power that comes with the ontology of the data that we are creating. We are keeping those knowledge graph in a place to do that kind of a mapping. We train those models continuously, and we enable that the autonomous engineering to fuel this whole thing at a scale, right? And that's where we are able to navigate a few of our customers onto this journey, and we are able to build that the connected ecosystem, right? We talk about the AI-led product. We talk about the data and AI exchanges. These are the key principles. If you talk about, we have the intelligence cloud, which is built up on the multiple solutions. So we can talk about the marketing cloud or the media cloud, where we are able to go and understand the user preference. We are able to understand the consumer knowledge they are there, and then we are able to understand and send them the targeting marketed campaigns, right? That way, we are giving up the power of those AI-led infusions to our client. And this is what we are coming up with this, the Infosys Topaz, right? And the Infosys Topaz is AI first. It is an ecosystem which is having a lot of services, which is having the solution, which is having a platform. Till date, we have already have almost around, 12,000 odd assets published as part of the Infosys Topaz. We have over 150 plus pre-trained models as part of it. And when I talk about the models, it goes across industry. We have the models for the CPG. We talk about the churn, right? The customer churn. We talk about the customer segmentation. We talk about the customer profile. We talk about when we go to the CMT, the media, we look at those marketing campaigns. We look at those media campaigns, how you can go and increase the per clicks that are coming on your website, right? Similarly, on the FSI, we have those models created or co-created with our engagements. We have the models on fraud detections coming up. And those are all infused, and we are now working up with the generative AI on top of it to make it more easier to consume the data, to process this information, which is coming out from this, the Topaz here. Right? So what we are looking at is overall Databricks. If we go as a brief about this, we are able to enable and we are able to establish the Databricks is a complementary to the data mesh. We are able to get the data as a product with the Databricks as a data platform. And the building blocks come here is the Unity catalog. The building block come over here is the delta sharing capability, and we are talking about the Databricks workflow. We are giving more power, more fuel to each of these building blocks, and we are able to generate the data mesh kind of implementation. And don't forget about the federated governance, right? And again, as we talked in the beginning, the governance is the one which makes the changes on how closer we can get to the data mesh. The actual implementation or the physical implementation of data mesh is always debatable. We are always going towards the more closer we can get and how we can do with the data mesh here. Okay, with this, I'll conclude and we can open for the Q&A.